All right, welcome back to trigonometry. We have we have a triangle here. We have some measurements. We have side. There's a angle, opposite angle, and then we have an x here. Okay, we have to work out the side of x. Now, you might be tempted to use law of sines because we have our length over here, we have our angle over here. So this is good, right? And we have this value here, and if we were looking for this angle, we can go ahead and get that, right? But we're going to need more than that, right? So we are stuck trying to figure out a side x here. So we don't have another pair of angles and sides to work with. So we're kind of stuck with like law of cosines here. And why do I know it's law of cosines is because we have two sides, or we have values for two different sides. We're trying to work this one out, and the angle between them, of course, the side across of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up, and we're going to say we have c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of the angle between them. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and write down the law of cosines first, and then we'll go ahead and figure out like what is my a, b, and c here. So we have the long side, that's my 5. So we have 5 squared equals, here is my square root of 5 squared. It's almost like somebody did that on purpose. Plus x squared minus 2 square roots of 5 times x times the cosine of 135 degrees. This is a thing that you can figure out, right? And again, I don't take your calculators away from you. You can use this for the calculator. We are figuring this out to two decimal places, so we're just going to go ahead and sort that out. So here we go. We have 25 is equal to square root of 5 squared. It's a little tricky. It's just 5 plus x squared minus 2 root 5 x's. You know, the next time we'll probably go ahead and get a decimal approximation for this times our cosine of 135 degrees. And let's go ahead and do that now. So I've got 2, let's go ahead and try to calculate it. So we have 2 times the square root of 5. Okay. Right, 2 times the square root of 5 times the cosine, so times cosine of 135. Okay, and we'll go ahead and set that down as a thought here. Okay, so that's going to do all of that. I'm going to go back and do one thing before I go through and do all of this is I'm just going to go through and make sure second function insert and parentheses, just because I don't want to take the square root of everything. I just wanted to take the square root of that 5. And so that's what we have for that. And we'll go ahead and press enter. Okay. I got a negative number. How'd that happen? Well, remember, it's the cosine of an angle that's bigger than 90. It's second quadrant. So yeah, of course it's going to give me a negative number. But what's going to happen here? It's negative times negative. So we're going to say this is 25 is equal to 5 plus x squared. And I'm going to go ahead and say plus, right? Because it's going to be negative times negative. That gives me a plus. And I'm going to say this is going to be 3.1623, 3.1623, 3.1623. That takes care of the 2, the square root of 5, the cosine of 135 degrees, x. All right. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. So I've got let's go ahead and subtract 25 from both sides. Subtract 25 from both sides. So we have 5 minus 25. That's going to be negative 20. So I'm going to rearrange the terms a little bit. We've got x squared plus 3.1623 minus, right? Because uh, we're subtracting 25 from both sides. So 5 minus 25 should be 20 equals 0. All right? At which point I'm going to say, okay, oh, this is an x here. So we have an x squared plus some kind of coefficient with an x minus 20 is equal to 0. If only there was some kind of a way to solve quadratics, so some kind of a formula we could use to solve a quadratic. Oh, wait, there is. It's called the quadratic formula. Of course it is. So one of the things we need for quadratic formula is that the right-hand side must be equal to 0. So make sure you've sorted this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Write down the formula first, then we're going to start plugging in the different pieces to it. Okay, it's usually the way to go. So we can go ahead and start looking at that. So we have x equals negative 3.1623 plus or minus the square root of 3.1623. If that was negative, when I square it, it's going to be positive. Some of my classes have a kind of a bunchy number like this in here, and it's negative, and they'll type in negative that number squaring it. So they'll negative something squared. This is what the calculator thinks. So the calculator will square it and then apply the negative. So be careful. You want to apply a negative squared like that. Okay. So just be careful with that. So we have plus or minus, we have 3.1623. Okay. Square minus 4. What was my A? A in this case is 1, right? Because the coefficient on the x squared is just the 1. Minus 4AC, and my C is going to be negative 20. Be careful about your signs on that one. Okay, your SIGN signs, your SINE signs. Be careful of those two, but they don't occur here. All divided by 2 times 1. Okay, and now we're going to have to go through and sort through the calculator to figure out what's going on with this. I don't like to ask the calculator to do too much at any one particular time. So I'm just going to go ahead and figure out this inside part here. I'm going to know that the negative times negative is a positive. So I'm going to say this is plus in here. Okay, it's called the discriminant. So we're going to go ahead and figure that out. So I've got 3.1623. We're going to go ahead and we're going to square this thing. Okay. Um, equals. See, oh wow, that's 10. That's beautiful. Okay, so that's going to be 10. And we're going to add, right, because negative, negative, so minus 4 times 20. So that's going to be plus 4 times 20. 4 times 20 is 80. Okay, so we ended up getting a 90 here. Okay, so we have x equals negative 3.1623 plus or minus. What are we going to do with the plus or the minus? We're going to have to see what happens. Okay. But in the under the square root here, we have plus or minus the square root of 90, and this is all divided by 2. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to type this stuff in. So I need the square root of 90. So we're going to say negative, let's clear. Okay, so we have negative, no, not that kind of negative. I want negative 3, nope, not that. I want negative, where are we? 3.1623 plus the square root of 90, second function, square root 90, and parentheses equals, and I'll take care of the first little bit of this thing, okay? Divided by 2, all right? Oh, we got 3.16211, 3.16211. Let's see what happens with the other part, okay? Let's double check to make sure that we type this thing in correctly. So I have negative 3, dang it, no, go to negative, let's go. 3.1623 minus, right, the square root of 90, and then we'll say equals divided by 2. Right, so I got, or x could be either positive 3.16 or x could be a negative, and we ended up with a negative 12 point or 6.32, 6.32. Okay, here's a rule. Lengths should be positive. So as far as me looking at this number, I'll like it. Okay. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to say, what were my original units here? I think they were in inches. Okay. We can double check to make sure. But yeah, I think these were in inches. So I'm going to say, we're going to take the positive one because the negative one doesn't make a lot of sense. It would be if we drew it on a coordinate system. But since we drew our triangle where all the lengths are going to be positive, right? If I had an origin here and we had things going the other direction, you could make a case that we would have a negative value for a thing here. But this triangle is listed like all of the lengths had better be positive. So for this one, I'm going to say no. We just found a triangle lying on the street. The lengths have to be positive. We're going to go with this guy right there. Okay, we had to do this to 2 decimal places, so our answer for here is x is equal to 3.16. I believe it was in inches. That's going to be my value. That's going to be my answer for this kind of a problem, okay? So this one's a little tricky because you have to use quadratic formula, all right? But I know you're up to it, but be careful with your law of cosines. You have to memorize your law of cosines. All right. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.